All this food was scavenged from the garbage. It doesn't matter if you're carrying feces or dirt. Just need a little work. The bones of these rich people. Still a feast for the local poor. This is Manila, the capital of the Philippines, the New York of Asia. A house that combines heaven, a city in conflict with Sin City. Manila is the financial and political center of the Philippines, and the rich people who live here, mostly the social elite. They make up less than 10% of the population. They control more than half of society's wealth. This also makes Manila's wealthy districts are relatively complete. Good infrastructure and a sound social security. But beyond the line between rich and poor, there are 4 million poor people in Manila, several times close to starvation. Welcome to Poor People Documentaries. In this episode, we go deep into the Tondo district of Manila. This is the most famous slum in the Philippines. It is also the world's highest population density, the poorest in the country, and one of the least developed places. It's 40% of the local population, and part of it. Scavenging is the main source of income. In an office building not far from Tondo district, the white-collar beauty is our first protagonist of the day, Vega. He is currently based in the Philippines, one of the largest banks by assets. He at this time has been enough to be called through learning, a model for changing destiny. But due to poor birth, he is also confused about the future. Through unremitting efforts in early years, Wei Jie was admitted at an elite university with great influence in Malaysia. When he was at school, he was a good example. Whether it's competitions or scholarships, never fell behind. That's why he was able to work in the bank after graduation. But he knew it too. If my birth had been better, or maybe a little background, I'm sure I'll be in a higher position now. Vega is off duty now, on the bus back. In the car, he struck up a conversation. The journey from the office to the house, it's a 20-minute walk. But he'd rather take the bus, because it makes you safer. In the district of Tondo, if a lady walks alone at night, there will be all kinds of harassment and looting. And because of the lack of police and people's lack of awareness of rights protection, it's also a breeding ground for these crimes. After a long stretch of narrow lane, Vega finally arrives at the residence. Most people can't imagine. You have to bend over to get into his house. And even less than 20 square meters of this place. There are 6 people living here. The whole home has no kitchen, living room, and bedroom division. Cook there and sleep here. Everything is simple and clear. And here's the thing about it. Although it is very cramped. Pink walls with baby pictures. Or will the home embellish warmthful? Vega says life is mostly quiet now. There's only one thing that bothers me. That is the disturbance of the flood. When the flood comes, at its worst, it can flood up to the waist. That is to say, everything in this little home will be destroyed. If that were the case, they would all move to the stairs to sleep. Even though it's hard to sleep, but there is no way around it. And the office building not far from here, but not at all affected by the flood. That's exactly why, no matter how hard the bank job is, Vega did not complain or complain. Because he knows, office buildings and their own slum compared, it's like heaven and earth. For their own future, Wei Jie decided to keep working hard, to make a good living for yourself. He wants to stay out of the ghetto, let the family move out, live in a place that is safe from flooding. He likes to see the smiling faces of his family. Every time I'm tired of work because of 7 meat 8 vegetarian, think of the future ahead. He would have liked it. In fact, the Philippines has excellent geographical conditions. It has unique conditions for development. From the 1930s to the 1970s. Because the level of modernization in Asia is second only to Japan. The Philippines is also called a model for Asia by Westerners. And here they are. Internationally known only for exporting maize. The reason behind it It also stems from the bloody history of their country's colonization. Before the 14th century, there is no state power in the Philippine Islands. Until more than 100 years later, the Spanish established colonial rule here. King of Spain, in the name of Philip II, they named this place the Philippines. War broke out between Spain and the United States in 1898. Defeat of Spain. The Philippines was colonized by the United States for nearly half a century. It became independent in 1946. Due to the long-term influence of colonial culture, the Philippine government is basically the same as that of the United States. The official language is English. So later in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, the Philippines serves as an Asian defense base for the United States. Received great financial support. The most glorious starting point of their economy. That's where it starts. Late 1960s, the Philippines has a per capita GDP of $254, far more than any other Asian country except Japan. And in this period, headquarters of the Asian Development located in Manila, the capital of the Philippines, and the Asian headquarters of many world-class companies, mostly here, too. Until 1969, because of the unprecedented prosperity of the Philippines, maybe even the world, one of the top 10 economies. It was also similar to Thailand, which was growing rapidly Malaysia. At the time. Indonesia is also known as the Four Asian Tigers. But the turning point came in 1975. Early 20th century, Philippine trade with the United States, only 10% of their total foreign trade. By the middle of the 20th century, that number has reached 70%. By this time, their economy was extremely dependent on the United States. And because of advances in technology, agricultural capitalists and landowners needed fewer and fewer agricultural workers. It was also because of the military needs of the United States during a large number of industrial orders for the Philippines. So most workers followed the rise of industrialization, migration to cities for employment. But the Vietnam War ended in 1975. America's need for war supplies came to an abrupt end. The Philippines, as a factory for the American rear, lost the market for the product. Demand for labor has also fallen sharply. When migrant workers start to worry about their livelihoods, those business owners actually have a hard time saying. Because the Philippines protects the rights and interests of migrant workers, a strict labor system was established. There are rules. You can't lay off employees without going bankrupt. So more and more enterprises start unburdening yourself in bankruptcy. It saturated the market share. The vicious circle of enterprise product oversupply. Businesses can't pay wages while being afraid to lay off workers. So the only choice is bankruptcy. And bankruptcies cost jobs even more. And because there is no core industry, no independent economic competitiveness, when the largest dependent object has left, the Philippine economy has since plummeted. On the one hand, the economy is down and people are losing their jobs. On the other side of the Philippines, also under the corrupt rule of then-President Marcos, lower and lower. There were riots and demonstrations. Finally forced the government to move to the world currency. The IMF asks for loans, but the loan comes with a condition. The IMF asks the Philippines to liberalize trade, lift import restrictions, and allow foreign investment into mineral agriculture finance, hydropower, and other Philippine state-owned sectors. After the Philippines agreed, the loan assistance did give them a shot in the arm. But there is also a more serious future problem. Because of trade liberalization, it is a plan to make the powerful stronger. But for a small, struggling country, what an accelerated pace of decline. Foreign capital quickly moved into Philippine agriculture, forestry, mineral, petroleum, and other resource and took control of the commercial banks of the Philippines and insurance companies and other financial institutions. And also due to a large number of industries, because of blind market has been eliminated, unemployment among workers has only widened. The economy continues to experience negative growth. At present, the internal problems of the Philippine national conditions have not been solved. The foreign troubles of the rescue loan also showed up. In 1986, the Philippines already has $2.8 billion in foreign debt. This figure represents 95% of the gross national product. The entire Philippine economy is practically bankrupt. At this moment, a new way has opened up for those at the bottom. That is to help abroad. Transfer outside money back home. Late 20th century. The monthly wage of the average Filipino worker, the average is around $100. And the Filipino mates who go abroad, and you get $500 a month. But they are popular overseas. It's not just hard work and patience. There are more historical reasons behind the Philippines. Because of the Spanish colonization, most Filipinos are Catholic. So compared to other countries, Western families trust their fellow Catholics more. Second, the official language of the Philippines is also English. Maids are able to work better with employers. Communication gradually. Hardworking, trustworthy, and easy to communicate became a label for Filipino maids in the West. The Philippines, it has also become the most popular labor export in the largest country. And in the face of such a serious outflow of domestic labor, no more government action. It should be to control the movement of people, keep young workers at home for development. But in the Philippines, they do the opposite. Because of these overseas workers, every year, he sends the money back to his family back home. This foreign exchange figure was in 1999. It has reached a staggering $6.8 billion, with a steady stream of dollars foreign exchange from all over the world to the Philippines. The country's collapsing economy. I finally have hope. Even after the Asian financial crisis, the impact on the Philippines, it's the smallest in Asia. That's why Filipino domestic workers have the title of national heroes in the Philippines, but they're not as beautiful as they thought. To support the backbone of the nation's economy, it is the blood and tears of every overseas worker who drifts abroad. Because Filipino maids are all over the world, and the Philippine government, not with all countries, sign bilateral agreements to protect labor, so that it can't be reached. The rights of all workers cannot be guaranteed. Inviolability. And Filipino maids work under other people. I've always been walking on eggshells. The slightest mistake can lead to beatings and abuse. They can even be sexually exploited, because many employers are lagging behind with a strong sense of hierarchy. Didn't realize they had anything to do with domestic service is an equal employment relationship. In the eyes of some employers, the status of domestic servants is no different from that of the master. The needs of the host should be fully met. Although the Philippine government, special Filipino workers were set up, the law tries its best to protect the rights of Filipino domestic servants. But there are still many, less egregious abuses are hidden under the water. Not widely known. As long as the employer doesn't go too far, as long as the level of economic development in the Philippines, there is also a huge gap with labor-importing countries. As the breadwinner of the family, most overseas Filipino domestic helpers will continue to suffer in silence. It's a collective tragedy. It is also a country's helplessness. If people at the bottom want to really change their fate, perhaps the key lies in the development of Philippine national power. This is just 19 years old Leon. You could think of it as a younger version of Vega. There are 10 in his family. They live in a cottage of about 26 square meters. Even though it was a terrible upbringing, but he still relied on his own efforts, excel academically, became the hope of the whole family. Just like Vega's past, at this time, Leon was studying at an elite university. Her mother was a local elementary school teacher. My brother is still at school. A teacher's meager income, making it impossible for the mother to pay for the family and my brother's tuition. Leon had no choice but to, from his scholarship money, to help the family. Worried about Leon's future mother, the local government has failed to raise employment rates, make it a priority. Hence the status quo that a diploma is not necessarily a job has become the consensus of the local people. Merely, Leon has been optimistic about this. He believes that where there is a will, there is a way. As long as you work hard, we can certainly usher in a future without confusion. Leon's college buddy, most of them are either rich or rich. So to speak, the dividing line between rich and poor is most obvious to him. Whenever a classmate wants to invite Leon out for coffee, he would politely refuse. Because he knows, I can't afford coffee on my own. Simply do not have money with each other. Can imagine, I've been through this a lot. the heart will inevitably fall into the mood of inferiority. But he is sunny and optimistic, not lost in the world of the rich. He never gave up on his poor family. But for the future of the family, he actually had the idea of leaving Tongdu. In the Tongdu district, like Vega, that's how Lian made the leap. After all, it's a minority. Most people have accepted the harsh reality. Mediocrity, living from hand to mouth is the norm. Many times seemingly simple 3 meals a day. It is a goal that they have to work tirelessly to achieve. Where can food safety issues not be ignored? But the people here will tell you, the food they face every day, it would definitely be described as dehumanizing. It's not done yet. Tangdu district garbage trucks will converge here. And this is the famous garbage mountain. It was late at night when the camera arrived at the garbage mountain. There's no one here. Pitch black. Some just hang around. The smell of corruption that will never go away. The camera is here until sunrise. I still don't see any garbage collectors coming to work. I later learned it from the boss. The only prerequisite for getting everyone to work, there has to be a garbage truck. The garbage truck broke down tonight of all nights. That's why there's no one there. Out of courtesy, the boss sent the camera crew inside to rest, but they regretted it as soon as they walked in. So this boss, not the grand old man we think he is. The working environment here, it could be described as awful. A bed of cardboard and wood is very unstable. The stench in the room, not much better than out there. When the garbage truck arrives, the workers began to get busy. In this bag that's not full of flies, there are countless valuable assets. It's just that this wealth requires workers to bear the stench. Pick it up slowly with your hands. That taste, I already think it's rotten. Because you really don't know what they put in there. It's all mixed in. Terrible. The 45-year-old is a garbage picker in the garbage mountain. Every day, his hands would be covered in garbage. Swim like any other scavenger. Wei-Yan has a hard time making a living here. A day more than a decade ago was a watershed in his life. His baby was born that day. But he also lost his job as a breadwinner. Wei-Yan, however, did not despair. He had tasted hunger many times before. So he can't let his children do the same. To raise a child, Wei-Yan had to find one. Jobs that work with food. Daily companions of cockroaches and maggots. And this one, decades of unimaginable proportions. To experience life, the camera crew was also involved in Wei-Yan's work. The difference is they're wearing rubber gloves. After picking and choosing, Wei-Yan finally found the chicken nugget in good shape. And then put them in a paper tube that you don't use. Classify. Chicken bones without meat are sold to farms as fertilizer. Chicken nuggets with meat in them are sold to vendors or processing factories. If you're lucky enough to encounter a piece of meat that's barely touched, and he would bring it home for his own cooking. The crew didn't get it. How is Wei-Yan not wearing gloves? I can operate all of this. I don't know what a strong heart Wei-Yan has. To be able to talk in this environment. He actually found a whole piece of us. Wasted, a muscle. He picked it up and washed it. And then there's already. This is bad shit to find the best for his own children. For them, he's not just a luxury, it's their meal. After work, Wei-Yan returned to her home. This home is just as cramped. Can be large and small furniture is placed in order. It is worth noting, a lot of things in this house. Wei-Yan picked them up by scavenging. His house is divided into 2 floors. His 4 children live on the upper floors. She and her husband live on the lower floor. Compared to other scavengers, Wei-Yan is one of the lucky ones because the house was transferred to him by a kind landlord. So he doesn't have to worry about rent. You can tell from the food. What a happy family. Though life is hard, but they still turn to the sun. In the Tangdu district, there are a lot of people who make a living selling chicken nuggets. The locals call it recycled meat. Some vendors sift through the nuggets first. Pick out the big ones. Wash and boil with a pot to sterilize. Then put the sterilized chicken pieces into the skillet and fry. Fry until golden brown and remove. Drain the grease and then you can sell it. Depending on the taste, you can also choose to add various sauces. After some stirring, it's a delicious dish. On this recycled meat, occasionally, a little high-protein creature passes by. But because the price is cheap and delicious, what do these bugs really matter to diners? Usually, they recycle the meat, serve over rice. They can be packed and taken away if guests need them. Many vendors set up their stalls on the street, selling this recycled meat. Others operate from their homes. Rosita, then 68, has been doing this for a living. Locally, no policies have been introduced to improve the living security of the elderly, so many old people have to make a living on their own. Rosita is one of the better known around here. On someone else's lost fried chicken, he also lived a vibrant old age. After all, selling such recycled meat is illegal in the region. Because a lot of people get diarrhea after eating, there have even been cases of food poisoning. But Rosita said, I picked up what I sold. But there's definitely a safety guarantee. To this day, no one yet came in to complain about eating bad food. On the contrary, he sells recycled meat because of its quality. It's always sold out. And local regulators, after tasting Rosita's recycled meat, and decided to cut him some slack. In the process of selling recycled meat, so to speak, he has not faced any official obstruction. Rosita also recalled, I started this business 6 years ago. He usually comes to the garbage mountain around 3 a.m. The advantage of being too early is that Rosita has plenty of options. He could pick as many mussels as he could that look good as raw material for the day. After bringing the chicken nuggets home, it'll be ready by noon. A whole bag of fried meat like this can sell for 60 cents. At the end of the day, he can earn about $5, though far from rich. But there's absolutely no problem supporting yourself. Out of intense curiosity, the crew decided to try Rosita's fried meat. The only thing he said about the ingredients was that they were chewy. At the same time, he felt it. If people in this world, you have to live on this stuff. What's the difference between this world and hell? In addition to food safety issues, there is also a serious preference for sex. Women are so low that they can't even decide themselves. The reproductive right of the body, they almost never receive sex education. When did your stomach bulge? When you have to give birth to the baby you deserve. Women here also lack basic contraception. Because of the act of contraception, it's a local symbol of indulgence and disloyalty. When the government is promoting, it also demonizes the use of contraception. Birth control pills are not allowed to be sold there. Choosing to abort would violate local laws. So every hospital obstetrics and gynecology is always the most lively. A large number of pregnant women are waiting to give birth every day. They're like a machine here. You're born to accept what you get. But a minority of women choose to fight to the end. They hurt themselves with hooks or iron bars in order to defend their dignity. But this is undeniably dangerous. To fight in this way, except for the word miserable, I have no other words to describe their situation. Next stop, we came to a public welfare group committee. As the operations manager of the group, it's not just school uniforms for local school-age children and other school supplies. And take the lead. Education protects their special mission. Because crime is already common in the area, and some of them are juveniles. Veneer has worked here for 17 years and put countless children on the right path. He's like a patriarch. Silently pay everything you can. introduction in the neighborhood due to the local disorder. So ordinary people try to avoid crime. But what scares the residents even more, he's a local land developer. Because all the land developers need is one word. They will be forced to move. So, it is never the poor who decide the fate of the poor. It's the big hands of capital. The last subject on camera. It was the unemployed 29-year-old Jenna, where Garner lives because of the tall buildings, known locally as Paradise Heights. But in the eyes of others, this is the ultimate irony, because it stinks in here. Far from heaven, even the little devil of hell is here. I'm afraid we'll take a detour. Only Garner's sister and children were home. His wife went out to work and hasn't come back yet. Garner suddenly looked depressed, because the current electronics industry is not booming. So he graduated in electronics. Every time I send out my resume, it falls flat. Until now, he hasn't worked for 2 whole years. And the family expenses all on his wife's salary and his sister's handouts. In the Tangzhou district, Garner is not alone. Although the Philippine economy has been booming, can be economic growth, it's not the same as job creation. There is data showing millions of people are unemployed in the Philippines. That's 1 in 5 adults. One of them will be unemployed. And among the unemployed, nearly 80% are younger than 30 years old. This is also the crime rate in some areas, the main reason why it has remained high. Although there's no job, but we can still find out. Garner always had a walkie-talkie with him. Turns out he was a volunteer firefighter. Where's the fire nearby? Gennaro will be the first on the scene to help with the rescue. Many homes here don't have electricity. Candles need to be lit at night, so it is prone to frequent accidents. Another reason is to tear the wires. The fire started when overburdened power lines burst into flames. The reason Jenner became a cop, it was all the influence of my father. His father was one of the first volunteer firefighters here, by osmosis. Since childhood, he has had a certain sense of justice and mission. What his words, I will help others at the same time, get double happiness. After all, this is where he grew up. He was also willing for the safety of the extended family. Do your part. To see that sunny smile on Jenna's face all the time, this optimism, enough to support his life. But it is also a cause for concern, because of what Garner was doing. It's all about love. But this state of optimism and openness, and for how long? If a small hope cannot be fulfilled, will he gradually become a permanent despair? No one will ever know. We can only hope that the local government, we will introduce more measures to support and measures to increase employment, solve the plight of young people today. Is a city the foundation for a nation to thrive? If it's just a little fat and ignore the interests of most people, sooner or later, the water can carry the boat and the boat can be overturned. We talked about that above. Since modern times, the Philippines has been colonized by Western powers. Reality was violently ruled by the Spanish for 300 years, and then the United States knocked Spain out, began to adopt a conciliatory policy towards the Philippines on various terms of interest to curry favor with the country's top brass. To one's advantage, with the rise of the United States, the Philippines also followed suit and enjoyed a lot of benefits. But because of the financial crisis, when the Philippines relies on the economic implosion, the beginning of the decline, the country is finally waking up. It turns out that danger is all around. As a family, the Philippines, the country's land was sold to foreign capitalists. In a downturn, capitalists, they sold off agricultural land without mercy. That triggered a series of economic shutdowns. The problem of the soaring unemployment rate. A large number of middle-class enterprises returned to pre-liberation overnight. Cable conglomerates that have long been friendly with the government unrest easy. This group became the upper class of the Philippines. Continue to live the life of a rich man. And the majority of ordinary people who are lost, but there is no turning back. so from small individuals to large countries. In a word, the iron needs to be hard. After all, there are no permanent friends, only forever benefit. If you don't try hard, you're just gonna be in a passive situation. And in the world behind the camera, we also saw some individuals in a bad environment. The light that blooms. Vega understands it doesn't matter if you don't have a background. He must also rely on his own efforts. Make life as good as possible for your family. Leon knows that the students in his class are richer than he is, but he's not going to suck it up. Because he wants to live his life. Harsh reality. It often stops Vern in his tracks, but he did it in the spirit of selflessness. Spare no effort to help children who want to go to school. Walk into the campus. Gerner has no income, but he's been following his heart. To complete the day, a night watch for the home. And the one that moved me the most, still to be counted, the big sister who stuck her finger in the leftovers, who has not been clean as new, who has not had cool feet. But for life, for the children to have books to read, the family has a house to live in, she still resolutely put herself in the mud. And then face it with a bright smile. The poet seems to be talking about the bitterness of life. It's not a big deal, you know. If you like more world human history stories, you can follow me or please like me for this video. We'll be with you. Explore the forgotten corners of the world.